to go.
Should we get cracking? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Driveline R&D, podcast episode 70. This sucks Caravan, director of data science, drinking a Johnny Utah Pale Ale.
Lindley, post-product manager, drinking Johnny Utah Pale Ale. Anthony supplied the boys with the beer.
This is true. Anthony Brady, director of sports science at Driveline, the research and drinks podcast. I'm the primary host.
And today we have a guest, Nick Martinez.
Yeah. Now I think I need a beer.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying, dude.
No, it's all
Fearless.
Hey,
I didn't know we were
water's fine.
Introducing this way.
Water's fine.
I'll-
We're all
grab one.
out of shape and not playing anymore. So
Except for this guy, if you watched the last episode.
yeah, maybe.
Nice. Nick, do you want to kind of introduce yourself, where you're at now, and kind of where you got to where you are now?
Yeah. Nick Martinez. I was drafted in 2011 out of Fordham University from Miami, Florida. I got drafted in the 18th round by Texas. Was primarily an infielder in college. Didn't really pitch at all. Like 26 innings of experience. Pitched 6 innings my freshman year, and then 20 innings my junior year, and that's the year I got drafted. I was coming out of the pen, pitching a lot of midweek games. Caught the eye of my area scout, Jay Hefner, and impressed him enough to follow me around a little bit, catch a few outings, and they took a flyer on me and got drafted in 2011. I've only been with Texas in the major league so far. Made my debut in 2014. Was in the big leagues from 14 to 17. Then went out to Japan for another 4 years, where I played for the Nippon Ham Fighters for 3 years. And last year I was with the Softbank Hawks. And I had that was kind of the year where I put everything together. From the beginning of my time out there, I was doing a lot of self-evaluation and kind of growth and what areas I needed to get better in. And at first I was a little stubborn when it came to the analytics and biomechanics and what all that meant and how I can make myself better. After my first year is when I went head first and diving into all the analytic stuff. And in 2021, last year, I was able to put it all together. I was on the Olympic team and pitched the gold medal game. And
That was against Japan too, right?
Yeah, against.
So were you playing against any of your teammates? Yeah.
Their catcher was my catcher.
Oh wow!
On the team out there, their center fielder was our center fielder. We had one of the relievers was our ace. Another one of their outfielders. He came in to pinch hit. I think one game against us.
Oh wow!
But then everyone else in that lineup, everyone but 2 guys were in my division. So guys that I've been facing, almost basically every week for 4 years. So they knew what I had. It was way more of a chess game. That gold medal game than just kind of going at it with my best stuff and seeing if you can hit it.
Was Senga on that team? Was that?
Yeah. So
was that who you're talking about?
Yeah, Senga's on that team, and that was a very, very talented. I mean, obviously they won, so they're a very talented team. I mean, all those guys are pretty nasty. So that was last year, and then I agreed to terms right before the lockout with the Padres, and that's still pending. Just I gotta wait for the lockout to end to do my drug test with MLB, and that'll be
How you feel about that, though?
finalized. I'm freaking pumped, man. It's an exciting team. I can't wait to join those guys and get it going, man. I mean, I think that the roster speaks for itself.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's pretty chill.
Yeah.
I so a little bit of context here, just for everyone else. I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. There was the ASMI injuries in baseball course. We've talked about it here, but I was on a biomechanics roundtable panel. It was actually right after your segment, and that's why I had seen it. But I remember I logged onto the call, was watching some of the talks, and then there was like the live interview with you and Glenn and Dr. Andrews, and you started talking about Modus stuff at the time, and I was just like, oh my God, like this is incredible. Like this guy, he's got it down pat. Like, he knows so much about it, and he's just like,
that's a lot of that has to do with Casey out of Tampa. He runs Connect Pro.
Oh yeah.
I still work with Casey. He's the one that kind of helped, put it in layman's term, all these analytic terms and workload and what it means to properly progress. And
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about it, so he was the one that really sat. And I still work with Casey, and he's able to explain it to me. And it took about
Nice.
2 years. I've been doing it since 2019, the end of
Nice.
2019. Now I'm working with it was Modus and Pulse now, and been going out with Casey since then. And he's really explained to me, what all those numbers mean, and how to what it should look like to properly progress. And it's been a savior for me. In 2019, I was injured. I didn't play at all. I sprained my UCL, and that's why I was kind of like a case study for Dr. Andrews, because I had come back from an injury, so well. I improved so much. Went from not pitching at all. I didn't need Tommy John, but I had a grade 1 sprain. And we went with the PRP route, and I had known a bunch of guys that got the PRP, and 3 months later they needed the surgery. So that was something that I didn't want happening. But he convinced me that I was feeling good. He did all the clinical tests, yanking my arm this way, and it didn't really hurt, but the MRI showed I had a sprain. So we went the PRP route, and so I didn't pitch the whole year. That off season is when I got with Casey, and I was like, I gotta properly progress, and I gotta understand what all this data means and biomechanics. And that was also the year I went out to Driveline. I was at a buddy's wedding. Alec Asher, maybe you guys know who Alec is. He was with the Phillies. Got drafted by the Rangers, so I came up with him a little bit.
Oh, gotcha.
I've seen his name on track, I think.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah. We all went to his wedding, and Luke Jackson, another good friend of ours, reliever for the Braves, he was at the wedding, and he had talked about the year before, 2019. He went to Driveline, and he loved it, and he was just talking about it at the wedding. And all this stuff was so new to me, and I was locked into wanting to get better and finding any new way, all this information. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm going out in January if you guys want to come." And we were trying to get Alec to get out there too. And Luke convinced us both to go out to Seattle. We went out for like 2 weeks or 10 days, I think I went. And I freaking loved it. I was like, I wish I could stay there the whole. Yeah. I got wife and kid,
Yeah.
so it's not as easy for me just to take off. But that's when I got into the biomechanics. I thought I felt like I'm athletic. I was second baseman, but it was my whole life. So on the mound, I always felt like I was athletic and just trying to be as athletic as possible on the mound. But when I had my mechanics broken down, I was like, dang, I got a lot to work on. I got a lot of inefficiencies, and I never really worried so much about my velocity because I knew I wasn't going to throw 100, but I had times where I could get up to like 95 in the season. So I wasn't too concerned. But then when I saw my biomechanic, the assessment, I saw all these inefficiencies. Like, wait a second, maybe 100 isn't that far fetched. Maybe I can move my body properly. And if now we're talking, maybe I can hit 100. Well, now that's something different there. I might be interested there, and if I can hit 100 or get up there, or get close to it as a starter. Now we're talking. So I started diving into the biomechanics side, working with Casey on the pulse side, keeping my arm fresh and learning new ways to, doing new drills to tweak my mechanics. The year in 2019, I didn't play at all. In 2020, working on my mechanics, using the pulse, my average velocity went up, and I had to hit 96 for the first time since I first got drafted. And then last year, my average velocity that year was like 93 or just under 93. And this past year, my average velocity was like 93.8, basically 94, and I topped that at 97. So,
that's cool.
I'm starting to put some more stuff together, and I'm starting to feel like it's not that unattainable. So
yeah, nice. That's all. So did you start with after the sprain, and when you were doing your return to throw program, then did you start with pulse during the return to throw and use that, or did you start it once you were kind of cleared to start kind of on ramping back onto the mound? That's when
So 2019, I got hurt. I used mostly Dr. Andrew's throwing program
Mhm.
and the Japanese, the team that I was on, their throwing program, kind of like a mix of
Mhm.
what they had. I didn't use the pulse yet. I was in contact with Casey still, working with him, learning the analytics side of the game. And it wasn't until that off season where because I was throwing, I came back throwing. I was scheduled to come back in August and ended up straining my oblique. So I just that canned the whole season.
Mhm.
So then I was kind of shut down the rest of the season. And then right when I got home, I flew home to Dr. Andrews, straight to Pensacola just to do another MR to make sure everything healed up nicely. And I didn't need a second shot. He said no second shot was needed. Everything looked great. And so from then on, when I started my throwing program again, is when I started with the Modus with Casey,
Nice.
and using that. Yeah.
Let's go. What does that look like in the off season compared to like preseason, getting ready for the regular season, and then using it in season?
I think in season is a little easier because you get into like a flow and a more I'm a starter, so it's a little bit easier for a
Mhm.
starter. And I actually had this conversation with Austin Adams, who also trains with Casey, and he's a reliever with us in the Padres. And he was talking about a little bit. It's a little bit harder to manage as a reliever, and we could talk a little bit about what we talked about. But for me, it's easier during the season, like I said, because you enter that flow
Mhm.
and you're kind of just repeating that same cycle for the rest of the year. And you might, obviously, if you go up, if you throw a little too much in your bullpen, you can kind of scale back a
Mhm.
little bit the next day and then keep that AC ratio within range. I think the off season is a little bit trickier. Again, because you're starting back up. I don't take any time off, but again, you're kind of starting from the bottom, and then you don't want to
Mhm.
ramp up too quickly
Mhm.
or start moving too fast. So you're just more aware of it. Uh, Having said that, also I was using it while I was in Japan, and my routine was I pitched once a week. Um, so it was almost like a college routine that I had, pitching
Mhm.
once a week, and that's obviously it's real nice because in Japan you pitch once a week, you get an automatic day off. Um, so that's real nice. But then what's great about the pulse now is that, or Modus Pulse, whatever you want to call it. I can use all this data, and it's going to be a very smooth and easy transition
Mhm.
for me to get back into 5 day because
Mhm.
I know how to prepare. I have actual data that I can look at and be like, okay, I'm definitely ready. And that's what I've been doing now this whole month is slowly transitioning back into a 5 day routine.
Nice.
That's interesting. How does where I'm always very curious because we spent a little bit of time in Japan working with one of the teams, and we just noticed that, and we've talked to some people about it, how the Japanese throwing routines are pretty different. How did their training
Yeah.
A
compare
lot of
to
volume.
yeah,
A lot of
yeah.
volume.
How
Yeah. A
how
lot of
did their
volume.
training compare to yours? And were they like interested in all at in the way that you were like managing workload and all that?
Yeah, the trainers are obviously very interested. And every time I spoke to a trainer and explained it to them, they were like, help us get the young guys on board. In Japan, it's very tricky because you have to maneuver the cultural side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
You have to kind of break that barrier, and that's not very easily. They have a lot of their thought process and their coaching ways are really old school, and they have a lot of coaches that have done it a certain way, and it's worked out for them a certain way.
Yeah.
So that's the way they teach. And if you bring around this new technology, it's very hard for them to kind of make that transition and keep that communication between maybe like an analytics guy or trainer or PT, whoever's working with the player and the pulse sleeve to the coach and then to the player and kind of keep that. It's pretty hard. I think that's the toughest barrier that you'd have to cross or
Mm-hmm.
break through. As far as for me, I'm blessed to be on a team, my first team, the Fighters, who were pretty progressive in their coaching style, and they
Mhm.
let the Americans kind of stick with what they didn't try to force us to
Adopt their style. Yeah.
adopt their style and kind of do the Japanese way. There are teams out there that do that.
Yeah.
The team I wasn't didn't do that, and then I had kind of established that I was a good pitcher in Japan through that team. So when I joined this next team, they knew and trusted that I had the work ethic and the discipline to kind of keep in shape and perform week in and week out.
You're like, yeah, let him play around with the pulse. He'll figure it out. He's good for it.
Yeah, we had a couple guys doing it. Like if guys got hurt, they would jump on the Modus, and it was a little bit hard for them. Obviously, the language barrier, and I'm not, I can speak a little bit about it, but I'm not an expert by any means. And can break it down and dissect it for them, and then translate it in another language, right?
Yeah.
So there were some. They would try it with some guys, and I remember one thing was like they were using the Modus once he warmed up, and it was like his pull downs. That's when they threw the Modus on, and then they would ask to see my app and compare it with his app, and they would see like a flow or like a kind of a certain progression and build up, and he would have a straight line. Like, well, yeah, because you're just already maxed out, and then you're doing the 10 throws. That's all it's right. It's all or 15 throws, whatever you had.
Yeah.
So it was just stuff like that. I think even on this new team, some of the younger guys were using it. And the Hawks, there were a few trainers that had a better understanding of it. But again, I think it's more of the cultural thing and kind of trying something new when something in the past has worked for them for so long. They have to take a leap of faith, and it's hard for some guys. It's also intimidating to go on a limb and kind of go out on your own and do that stuff.
Yeah. I was curious in general. I was going to ask you, what are some of the cultural differences you noticed pitching in Japan versus States?
Well, the mindset that is a little bit different. Like the volume we talked about, the mindset is really about like what we might be. I'm not that it's good or bad for either side, but they have a lot of pride in like representing the team, and like I have to go out there for the team. In some cases, it works out. Obviously, it's very easy to get guys pulling the rope in the same direction. You see a lot of guys, the Hawks, they've won so many championships because a lot of guys, have the same mindset and like, same goals. But again, another thing is like the volume is way different. One thing that I would like to see over here, the massages, like the Japanese, you get all the time. You're always like getting massages and stuff like that.
Are the massages way cheaper there?
No, we have like our trainers. We have like 12 trainers on staff, and like everyone's getting like. Okay. So what's interesting is that we don't stay for the whole game.
Yeah.
Starting pitchers leave. They're not. We don't stay for the game. We're not pitching in.
Oh wow.
But once the game starts, we're allowed to leave. After the third inning, we go home. So I get my workout during the game. I get all my workouts done during the game, or if I get treatment, I get it done during the game with one of the trainers. And so the acupuncture and the massages are fantastic. You get spoiled. 4 years old, you're like, that first year you stick to your American routine, and then second year you're trying like going in an extra day in between your starts and get an extra massage in. By your fourth year, like almost in there, like, I got nothing to do. I'll get another massage, I guess.
Yeah, that's honestly super efficient. Just like if you're not playing the game, get your work in during the game. So
you miss the camaraderie and like being a part of the game. And like during the Olympics, I hadn't been around it, for almost 4 years. I hadn't been in the dugout watching a game, so I was freaking jacked up.
Yeah.
When I was in the dugout watching the game, I was pumped. So I like it. I like being in the dugout personally, but it's definitely more efficient. It's not like they're going to pinch hit me or I'm going to pinch run or anything, right? Yeah. So we're just cheering on our teammates, which nothing wrong with that either. But, there's better ways to spend your time.
For sure.
What's your pitch arsenal look like?
Predominantly four seam, and then curveball, changeup, and cutter are my four main pitches. I've dabbled with like a two seamer, trying to, I guess the next pitch I would try to, pick up on is the laminar two seamer. I think that would be I'd be better suited for that, since I kind of cut my ball a little bit. And then I have a seam oriented changeup already. The changeup I use is more of a seam oriented induced break.
Nice.
Which makes me cut the ball. That's the way I cut the ball. So I think with that laminar, I might be able to hide that seam and create some run. I haven't really figured out a grip though. I just actually today, my Insight camera just came in from Rapsodo. I just set it. So I'll try to have a few weeks to play around with that thing.
That's very cool. So you have a rep set that you work with on the daily for all your pens?
Yeah. Again, I mean, the more information I was learning from all this, all this data, this new path that the game was taking, my eyes opened up, and I was all in, buying all the gadgets and checking out. I had for a while like a little Sony camera that I was using for slow mo, and kind of obviously it doesn't sync up as nicely as the Insight camera, but I was in Japan. I was using that thing for some bullpens and checking out how the ball was coming out, trying to get an edge any way I could.
Yeah. Do they use much of the high speed footage and video in Japan?
They use a lot of video. They do a lot of video. Yeah. Especially the team that I was on last, the Hawks. They have all their bullpens, they have a bunch of cameras on you, and you can watch your mechanics, and it'll slow it down. And the Hawks had a biomechanics. They had their little lab that they could set up at their minor league complex.
Mm-hmm.
I could have gone in there at any, I didn't have, it was just it's like an hour away. Their minor league facilities, like an hour away from the big league stadium. So anyone throughout the season can go there and get a biomechanics breakdown, and kind of take it into the off season or make some adjustments depending how you want to work with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've actually noticed that with some of the Japanese and also Korean players that we've worked with here. A lot of them have an iPad that they bring around, and they set it up, and they film everything. Like their entire session is filmed, so they can review it. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, even batting practice. They have the cameras. They have an iPad set up that's videotaping them, and they can break it down and check out their swings.
Gotcha.
They like all that stuff. Yeah.
Back on the workload topic a little bit. What are some of the other ways that, like, outside of Pulse, what are some of the other ways that you've seen like players or teams kind of quantify workload or measure workload and try to use that to prepare the pitchers?
I mean, other than Pulse, I don't think there's really much other than just pitch count, right? Is the only way you can regulate workload, and that's
subjective pain.
My
arm's dead.
Yeah, subjective
how they're
pain,
feeling.
right? How they're feeling that day.
Number of massages they
really
need
just,
to bounce
you're
back.
just spitballing at that point. I mean, once I learned, I'm shocked more teams haven't gone all in on the Pulse.
Lindley's working on it.
Any sort of sleep.
Yeah.
But the Pulse is, I mean, having a workload data, knowing what your workload is, it basically eliminates that kind of like that down month. You feel that fatigue month.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed, when I was in the minor leagues and coming up, I always, the start of the season, like in the low 90s, I would touch like 93. I'd hit a month where I'd get up to like 95. I'd stay at 95 for like, I'd be hitting, not sitting. I'd be hitting 95 consistently for like a month worth of games, maybe a month and a half. And then after that, I would taper down, get back to like 93 for a little bit. And then right at the end of the season, I would see another little surge of just like touching 94 or something like that. But basically, there would be a little dip, and this motor sleep, my average velocity has not really wavered.
Awesome.
It's really helped me stay fresh and eliminate any of those down periods. And then obviously it gives you more confidence that your arm is going to be able to sustain a season.
Yeah, for sure. Something, since you're like kind of getting ready for a season with the Padres, what are the, like, with the whole lockout and not necessarily knowing when you're going to have to go out there and compete, what's the like strategy? Like, what are you shooting for to make give yourself the best chances to be ready whenever spring training?
Yeah, so I'm throwing live VPs already. I've gone up to, I'm right now hovering at like 2 innings, maybe get out to 3, as we get closer to the end of the month. But I'm what's that?
I was saying strike out Tatis Jr.
Oh no, I would be great to face him just because he'd expose me real fast, and I'm like, okay, I gotta work on this.
Find out what to work on.
Yeah. So I would love to. I don't know. No, but I'm facing some other buddies, good hitters too. So we get to talk and stuff. But I was throwing my live VPs once a week, and just maintaining about 2 innings until camp starts, until we have a date, and then maybe tomorrow's feeling good. I'm throwing in a live VP tomorrow, but I'm also transitioning to that 5, throwing every 5 days now, and maybe we'll get out to the goal is to get out to spring training and be ready for for a game, a spring training game, and that's what I've been, preparing for.
Nice. One of the things you mentioned, the ASMI thing that I thought was really interesting is because you were over there using Pulse on your own, not necessarily like there wasn't anyone on the team kind of directing it. It was really like led by you, which I thought was cool. But were you also accounting for throws in the game and like even in between innings as well too, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, every throw counts, right?
Yeah.
Like every forward throw is technically stress on the elbow.
Yeah.
So if I was throwing my plyo balls before the game playing catch, I had my sleeve on. And then during the game, I just made sure I'll just keep an average.
Mm-hmm.
If I did plyo balls in between innings, which I found was fantastic.
Yeah.
I didn't do that my first year. And in Japan, you only get 5 warm-up pitches. And if you want to warm up before, you could play catch in front of the dugout. But then you're just lobbing the ball and you're not really firing those fast twitch muscles, and then it's almost worse.
Yeah.
Throwing those plyo balls in between innings kept my arm, sharp, ready to go, moving fast.
Just like in the dugout?
And or behind the dugout on a wall. I would find a wall somewhere and just start ripping it. And I would just count those throws. And sometimes I would need more, right? If we had a long inning, I would just make sure I kept count of it in between innings. But I would normally do like 5 plyo throws with 2 outs, and then sometimes it'd be 8, 10. If it ever got wacky like that, I would just do an overall, like, maybe I did 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get 5 in Japan. You get 5 warm-up pitches. In the big leagues where you get 8. So I just got to remember every inning I pitch, I got there's extra 8.
Oh wow.
Pitches, and then look at my pitch count. What it was at the end of the game. Manual input that in the game right after my outing. Put it in open the app, throw it in there. You got the average torque, whatever my average torque was that day. Throw that in there too, and I got my workload for that, and I'm able to stay really, really consistent.
Wow,
that's awesome. And then the next day or like the following couple days, has that ever? You've been like, oh, my workload for this game was a little bit higher than it typically is. I'm going to take an extra day off, or I'm going to like.
No, I never. Once I got to the season, I've always had my progression so that those heavy days I can just let it eat, and nice. I would adjust those if I would be more worried or looking out for the leading up to the days in between.
Yeah.
If I had a bullpen, or let's say I had a bad game, or a pitch didn't feel right, like maybe a pitch didn't feel right, and leading up to the next bullpen, I wanted to work on that pitch. So work on my cutter or something like that. I wanted to throw a bunch of cutters or sliders because it wasn't good the game before. And in my bullpen, I threw way more than I should have. If my workload should have been a 20, maybe I was like a 27 or 28. I was getting up to close to 30. I'm probably gonna feel that, especially in July, August. So then if that happened, next day might be a little lighter, or the next 2 days I would bring it a little bit lower my workload a little bit, my daily workload, just so that I can feel fresh for my game day, and I can just let it eat. I wouldn't have to worry about like, hey, I can't, I have less pitches, or I can only go really 5 or 6 innings today.
Yeah.
I want to be able on my game days just let it eat, and if I have to go 9, then I'm ready to go 9. What's nice about having all this is that I don't have to worry about pitch count in the game, because I know that I've properly progressed. So in Japan, they're very big on, especially if you're one of their premier starters, like you're going to get in there deep, like you're our guy. So if you're in a jam, we're still going to rely on you. And when you get out of that jam, you're going back out there. So you see a lot of like the Japanese, especially with the Japanese pitchers, and especially the Japanese like aces on the team, like they're going like 135 pitches a lot, right? They don't really have any of the data that they don't use the motor sleeve. But for someone like me, with on the flip side of that, they don't really like doing that to the Americans, because the foreigners, they know, like to hover right around 100 pitches to keep them safe.
Yeah.
Well, I'm more on the Japanese side with that aspect, because I'm like, I have all this data, all this workload. I know I've progressed.
You can handle it.
Dude, throw me out there. I'm ready to rock. If I get out of jam in the 7th and I feel good, throw me back out there for the 8th. If the 8th is rolling, throw me back out there for the 9th. I can throw 120, 130 pitches and do what I have to do. Look at the data. Obviously the AC ratio is going to jump up to 1.3, but now I have that data to tell me, all right, now let's take it easy the next couple of days so that I can be fresh and ready to go for my next start.
Yeah, that's awesome. We were finding similar things. One of our pitching trainers, Dean Jackson, is working with some return to throw programs with Pulse, and it was interesting because like if there's an athlete that's doing a return to throw and they kind of just throw until, or you give them some like general guidelines but nothing super specific, and they throw until they're feeling it, they're feeling sore, feeling tired or whatever, they may not be ready for their next workout after that,
Right.
So I
they
think
may be too fatigued.
Yeah, for sure. I thought it was super interesting how you said being able to like, adjust for a big workload so that in 3 days you'll be able to, be able to feel ready, because it's not easy to project that out and know that you're gonna like feel ready.
And there's a big difference for anyone that might be listening that's a return to throw, or even just you're throwing like you're going to feel fresh, but there are obviously going to be games where like your arm doesn't feel right? Because we're human. Obviously, you don't get the right rest or sleep maybe the night before start. So there's ways to that. But I didn't notice any big philo jumpers or dip in my outages throughout the whole year. It was very, very consistent. Even if I didn't have a good rest or good sleep the night before, and I felt like, man, my arm feels like it's dragging a little bit, or just like those natural things that still happens, but my velocity and my arm was still moving the same, even though I may not have felt the same. So guys that maybe for return to throw guys that may listen to this and they're looking at the modus and like, dang, I'm supposed to feel fresh today and I don't really feel fresh. I wouldn't really panic about that either, because there's so many variables, right? Mm-hmm. Just trust that the data is telling you that, hey, things are moving in the right direction, and you're going to be just fine.
Yeah. I think that's one of the easiest things for guys in college right now, especially with like college baseball starting up soon. That's kind of one of the easiest like downward spirals that happens, is you have a bad outing or like a couple bad, stints in a row, and you try to fix everything in like midweek bullpens or during your catch play. You try to end the round with like, I'm going to do like 25 or 30 flat grounds today, and they're all going to be high intent because I'm really trying to fix my changeup. And they just don't account for that like additional soreness. And now they're trying to go out, fix stuff in the game, arms kind of banged up. It's just so easy on the college side, I feel like, to do that. And then the coach or them, if they don't know their workload, they don't know how much they're throwing, you're kind of just at a loss there, and then it just spirals into a worse outing, and keeps kind of spinning out of control.
You can't dig yourself out of the hole, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I think that definitely helps. Knowing your workload, knowing where you're at in your progression, and then obviously there's so many tools that you guys provide. A lot of tools with the plyo balls and all that stuff. I think it's a lot of guys are saying like using the plyos to play, to warm up, so that your catch, you're working on something specific that you're working on, so that you're ready to work on. Every throw has purpose.
Yeah.
And so, if you do want to work on a few different things, you can set aside, designate specific days to work on what you're working on, instead of, and then what happens, a lot of guys that don't use poles or even don't use a plyo throws, they're wasting a lot of throws, warming up, putting more stress, and then only working on what they want to work on for 5 pitches. Or 10 pitches, right? But then 10 pitches isn't enough, because they want to work on it for 30, 40 pitches. Yeah. But if you did a proper, warm up, or use the plyo balls to get your arm going, get your arm ready to rip whatever you're working on, you could play catch and start playing catch with whatever pitch you want to work on. And then you have the data with Pulse to let you know when you've hit that workload.
Yeah.
You may want to play around with it. It doesn't, there's days where I'm okay if I have a 20 and I get up to like a 23 or 24. If I was working on something specific that day, I'm still within range. Mm-hmm. I would probably be, if I'm supposed to throw a 20 and I get hit a 30, then I'm like, dang, I went way too much. Now I have to figure out how now I'm looking a few days ahead, and how am I going to adjust my workload so that I can stay within a healthy AC ratio.
Yeah. I think that's like the coolest thing that, when you were talking to ASMI, that I heard, is almost how Pulse for you was, just as valuable in terms of like what it actually does and giving you that information, but also just being educational for you, to where now you can have those kinds of thought processes and like ask those questions as you're working out and training. Like if you've never even thought of workload or anything beyond just pitch counts, kind of like what Lindley said, in the moment, you're just throwing. And it feels good today, right? So I'm just going to keep throwing in this bullpen. I really want to get this pitch down. And it's Wednesday. I don't throw until Saturday. So, like, this is fine. And you don't understand the long-term effects, what you're going to feel like on Thursday, what you're going to feel like on Friday, and then into Saturday. But now, just because of the amount of kind of data that you've seen and been able to experience, like, oh, yeah, sure, I can throw the extra 20 pitches that I want today, but I just need to know that, I need to modify Thursday, modify Friday, or be cognizant of like, oh, this is why I don't feel great on game day kind of thing.
Right.
That like education.
And like on the game days when, you want to make sure you feel good, but I've had days where like I threw too much in my bullpen, maybe forgot about it. Next day they're like, dang, I'm a little sore today. What happened? And it's like, oh shit, I threw freaking, 25 extra pitches that I shouldn't have thrown. At the beginning of when I was learning this pulse thing, the pulse or modus at the time, and now pulse when I was learning it, and learning how to play catch with it too, and learning what it means. Like, it was a little bit of an adjustment for me, but as soon as I got it, like you said, now I'm ahead of the curve, and I can. Okay, I had a heavier day than I wanted to today. Well, I know what all these numbers mean. I've educated myself. I've had help from Casey. Who I'm pretty sure helped start Modus and was a subject. So he knows how to break it down. He knows what all those numbers mean. He knows really what a proper progression looks like. And so, and he explained to me, and I was bought it. I bought into it. I want to learn. I wanted to learn so much about it. So now I'm at a point where like, okay, I had this heavy day. I know to look at, if it was on Tuesday, I can look at Friday and Saturday and be like, okay, I can this and this. I have days here where I can get myself back on track. I think that's what ultimately when you present it to a team, and now I'm just one pitcher, but now you have someone that can look at it, an entire pitching staff.
Yeah,
you can manage, like, I think most importantly, we talked about a little bit, was the relievers during the season. That's probably the hardest, but shit, if you had a bullpen that was fresh, if you knew how to manage, we'll keep them fresh the whole year. Dang, how lethal, those are the unsung heroes, right? Like those are the guys that get you out of jams in the biggest games of the year. If we can keep those guys fresh in October, dang, that's a lot of winning. Those are the most important games you want to win. So 100%. For guys like those relievers using that, like you said, during the season is a little bit harder, right? Because you don't know when you're going to pitch, right? Especially, and then if you're one of the late inning guys, you might be pitching every day. So any relievers, if you're kind of staying and working at a 10, if you kind of maintain a 10 almost every day, right? If your goal is to every day maintain a 10, and then the game that you get in, you're obviously going to be a little bit higher, get up to like a 20 if you're a one inning guy, right? Or 25 or whatever, right? So then now the next day you can back off from a 10, and now I might go to like a 6 and just kind of stay at a 6, and then tomorrow I'll be at a 10 again. If I get in the game again, I'm able to kind of prepare for it a little bit easier. And so
that's fire.
So then you use the game just to kind of bridge the heavier workload, and then adjust from there, right? So I think it's a fantastic tool to make sure that you're fresh and just educated on what your arm is going through in a season, and find new ways to be ready, right?
Yeah, that's what I think on another one on the college side that I think would be like the most valuable or leverageable is the two-way guy that is also your number one or number two reliever. I know it's like not as common. I mean, it's still pretty common in D1, but like a lot of schools, when you don't have the arms that you need, you've got your center fielder, your right fielder, who's also your, setup man or your closer on Fridays and Saturdays. Right. I mean, they're ripping down pull downs on the way to the plate for guys tagging up from third.
I did that a few times. Yeah.
Yeah. And then on Sunday,
I'm like, let me go rip a few
in
case I got to come in and pitch.
Exactly. So those guys are doing it just like as their position, they've got outfield practice in the middle of the week. just the amount of workload that those guys experience, even catchers too, that's probably the worst actually, is the two-way catcher pitcher combo. They're just throwing back all day. They have no idea how much they're doing. And then all of a sudden you just ask them to pitch.
Yeah, I mean, I think, at that level it gets really tough, right? I mean, for professionals, this is our job, so it's a little bit easier to maintain. And like, hey, this is what I got to do, right? To be ready and to make it where I want to be. For college guys, I can see how that can be challenging. And I would say, take charge, take control of your career. I mean, if you notice that, you're throwing too much, the coach is riding you, you're in the outfield, or you have this kind of practice, then he wants you to throw a bullpen or close the game. Obviously in the game it's gonna be a lot harder to say no. Hey coach, I'm not pitching today, right? Like, dude, you're getting in the game, right? Yeah. So that's gonna be harder. But during the week, like, dude, take control, man. Like, hey, I'm not throwing a bullpen today. You're not gonna forget how to throw, right? Or if you have a bullpen today, like don't go, warm up properly. Like, coach, I'm not throwing to the bases today. If you need me to throw a bullpen, I can throw the bases tomorrow or the next day, right? Like, take control. It's your career at the end of the day.
That's super smart.
I was talking to
these coaches are going to forget anyway. So
for sure.
Very true.
I was talking to
yesterday.
I was talking to a minor leaguer in the fall. He was talking about how, like, sometimes you go to practice, you go to the game, like, you don't really have control over how the coach is going to use you, like throw you in the game whenever. Like, it kind of depends on the game situation. But the days you can control, the days you aren't in a game or playing in a game, or you're just like on your own, like just using everything in your power to like make sure that you are like healthy and ready to go for those game days. So the things you can control, just like use them as preparation days basically, and give yourself the best chance of success for when you can't necessarily control it.
Yeah, for sure. And what better way to do it than having did it? If you're an outfielder and you're also a pitcher, like, you can wear it in the game. No umpire can tell you no. You can wear it, upload it. I know you're not really supposed to have your phone. That's gonna be another thing. Like, I gotta get used to having my phone. In Japan, they didn't have a problem with it. Like, I have my phone in practice. I don't know if they're gonna take it the same way in the States, but I'm gonna need my phone or have the trainer's phone and just log into my account. Hey, connect my modus. I'm about to start playing catch or something. But in practice, those guys they're two-way guys. Throw that sleeve on there, and those throws count, right? Like, you're playing catch, you're throwing, boom, And so if you do have a bullpen, let's say you do have a day where you're kind of handcuffed, and you have a situational day, right, where you're working on relays and you have to throw, right, because the coaches make you throw, but you also have to throw a bullpen. All right, well, throw that sleeve on. Be conscious of, like, okay, I know I got two things, a real heavy day, and I got two things. So maybe instead of playing catch, maybe not playing catch at 300 feet or 250, maybe just stick it at to 120, get a few extensions at 120 or 150, bring it back in, and then be conscious of how many throws you're doing. Do a quick upload in between your bullpen. I got to throw my pitching spikes because they have the tough toe. I don't know, make up some crap that you got to go by your phone or something, and then upload some data. And now you have an idea of, like, okay, I'm supposed to be at a 25 today. I'm already at a 12 after all that throwing the bases. Okay, I got enough for a bullpen. I got enough that I can mess around here and throw a good sized bullpen. Or even if let's say you threw too much, you're like, okay, I'm just going to work on my two best pitches today, because those are ones that are going to get me out of a gym anyways. Let's keep those sharp and keep those ready to go.
I was going to ask if there's one big area that you wish you did have something to kind of track, right? Like, there's biometrics now. People have Whoop, Oura rings, whatever.
Yeah.
Is there like a new kind of like tool or tracker you're kind of looking at, or just even thinking like, damn, I wish that existed? Because let us know, bro. We're down to invent it.
Yeah, right. Shoot, if we can, I'm down to get into it too. I don't know of any new tech or anything out there, or new ways to track anything. I wish I did. Shoot, I probably wouldn't be on this podcast. I'd be in a meeting or something. But I'd say one thing about one adjustment that I did have to make, after opening the floodgates with all this information, and it kind of hindered me, and it was a learning experience for me in 2020. So after getting all this information and finally understanding it, I just wanted to do it all the time. I wanted to see my spin rate. I wanted to see my movement. I wanted to see my workload. I wanted to see my mechanics. And it's just impossible to focus on all those things at once. And then also to focus on all those things, or even two of those things in the season. And so something for me that I had to learn was, and I got it. And what made me make that, what helped me make that adjustment, had a good season in 2021, was because I set time aside to do each, right? Like I set time aside in my off season to work on my biomechanics. All right, for these next 3 weeks, I'm gonna be looking at my mechanics like a madman. I'm gonna be obsessed. I'm gonna be thinking constantly about my mechanics and ways to get better. And I'm just gonna be focused. I'm not gonna be worried about throwing strikes or how the pitch is coming out. I'm gonna be just focusing on getting off the mound as much as possible, so that I can check my mechanics, do a slow mo. With Casey, maybe you guys, I'm sure you guys know Pro Play AI or Pitch AI, where you can do that. Yeah. So, I could send videos to Casey and do a biomechanics review every week if I want, get off the mound as much as possible. Even if the workload is a 12, all right, I'm playing catch to 90, getting what I need to get to throw. And I might have 5 throws, but I'm going to give 5 quality reps just to check on my mechanics. And I'm going to be just obsessed with my mechanics. Then the next 3, I'm going to do pitch design. And in that the COVID year in 2020, when everyone was shut down for like 2 months, I was like, dude, I did my Rapsodo certification. I did the Driveline pitch design. I was like, I might as well learn something, and try to get better one way. So then those, after the biomechanics, get my mechanics where I want them to be. All right, now these 3 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever it is, let's sharpen up these pitches. Let's get behind the slow-mo camera and let's see how everything's moving. And then if there's something that needs to be fixed urgently, all right, let's dive into that for a few weeks and try to perform that and start commanding that. Then once that's done, we're getting closer to spring training. I need to get into competition mode. I stopped with the Rapsodo. I stopped with the biomechanics. It's like, all right, these 3 weeks right now, like I'm in my live EPs, I'm getting into competition mode. And I would say for a lot of young athletes, you get so engulfed in all this data, and it's great, right? Like it's awesome. You're learning, you that fire kind of gets ignited and you want to keep getting better, but you have to set time aside to like, I need to go out and compete.
Yeah.
Because you can't be thinking about getting someone, especially at the big level. I can't be thinking about how am I going to get this guy out, and how am I going to worry about where my hands are, or if I'm driving properly, if I have, from my back leg, or if I'm not flying open. Like you can't think of all those things at the same time. And so setting time aside to train for that, competitiveness and that competition mindset, definitely that's a must right before spring training.
I think, by the way, this is good advice in life in general. Like you can only do so many things at once. Just like I can't read more nonfiction books, get better at my job, get stronger, and get, like all this shit at the same time.
Get enough sleep.
I was gonna ask you, how do you integrate HP stuff, like strength stuff, high performance? Do you kind of, what do you do there?
Yeah. So I haven't done that. I know I've seen Trevor Bauer's stuff on when he was doing a bunch of data and working out. I saw him when I was at Driveline in 2020. He was there, and I got to see a little bit of his routine and like how much he does, like watching like how often he's like jumping and all that stuff, and like the strength output. I have a trainer that played ball and I've been working with for 10 years, and so we don't get on the force plates, but I have that I can measure like the speed of I move the bar, and if I'm doing stuff, so
like bar speed.
The Vitro or something like that. Vitro or Virtue. I don't know. There's one brand out there that I've used and that I have, and that we work on just for kind of keep that speed, right? And measure that speed. I don't do it daily. But again, just like we were just talking about, I set a time aside where we're doing our power phase and getting that speed phase. Then I'm working on it, trying to get that level, and I'm trying to maintain it. But I don't really focus on it every single day, because again, we're human, right? So I didn't sleep right, or for whatever reason, I'm not feeling as bouncy that day. I'm not. Those fast twitch muscles aren't firing as well as they're supposed to. So now I may not feel like I'm as explosive as I should be. Now you start falling into more of a mental, like, crap, I'm not ready. When in reality, you know, you're all ready, and you're never going to be 100 or 110% all the time, right? Like, you got to just go out there and compete.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. You got any questions or anything you want to ask us?
No, just that
Anything
if you
top of
guys
mind?
any kind of new data, new ways to get better, I'm all ears, man. I mean, I'm
I
trying
mean,
to get better.
I was about to say we got to get you back out here for some force plate stuff at least, because we got force plates in our lab
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
On the mound, and we have our own force plate assessment, and we have all these metrics kind
Okay.
of piping into like predictive velo metrics. So like, okay, this guy is strong enough that he should be throwing harder. He's not. Let's look at like where the inefficiencies are.
Oh, that's cool.
Stuff's way more integrated than even a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The process has changed quite a bit. Like even in the biomech lab, you know, I'm sure when you came, we were kind of like figuring out a lot of your inefficiencies.
I was still in the old gym. I was
Mhm.
in the old gym, and then when I left, there was talks about getting a new gym when I was there.
Mhm.
It was early January of
Yeah.
2020. There was talks getting a new gym, and they're looking for a new gym, or they found a place. And
Yeah.
right after I left, I think they had just, you know, signed a lease to a new place. It was like this
Yeah.
huge, I'm guessing that's where you guys are now.
Yep. Yeah, so
Um,
it's pretty crazy. The lab now, it's like a completely dedicated lab. We've got
Yeah.
a motion capture lab on one side of the pitching cage, and then one on the hitting
too.
side.
We're doing mocap for hitters too.
Yeah, so
That's cool.
we kind of do all
Yeah.
that. We've got the force plates. We're starting to do a lot too now, where we're
The
collecting
whole
pitch
arsenal.
metric,
Yeah.
pitch metric data during the biomechanics
cool.
piece. So you throw off speeds. We get an idea of like, okay,
Oh, cool.
here are all your movement metrics, and maybe not only is it like a grip combination that we need to work on for, you know, changing your pitch movement metrics, but maybe there could be something within like the kinematics and way you move there, and
Right.
also
Right.
starting to get the force plate data. So we're trying to just get everything in one area and collect all of that data at once, so it's a little easier for the athlete too.
Right. And then kind of address it in like the gym if you have to, or
Yeah.
and like just maybe some exercises,
And
mechanical exercises.
Yeah, we're kind of doing what you were talking about as in terms of like that blocked focuses
Yeah.
thing too, where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
we collect data in the gym, get you on the PT table, you know, get you throwing in the mocap lab. And instead of just everyone is getting work on mechanics, everyone's getting pitch design, we kind of try to identify like what's your lowest hanging fruit right now, and what can give you, you know, like if you came out and you're like, hey, I've only got 6 weeks, or I've only got 10 days, whatever it is, you know, and it's like,
About 6 hours.
all right, yeah, we're not going to worry about maybe pitching mechanics in that time, but you know, we think within that 10 days or 6 weeks or whatever it is, we could really nail down some like pitch characteristics that we're looking for, could make your arsenal play better, or even command too.
Right.
Command
Right.
intended zones. That's a pretty big one that we're focusing on as well. So
Command intended zones.
Intended, yeah. We're tracking basically like median miss distance, like where the pitcher was trying to aim, where it actually ended up. You know.
And then looking at his mechanics, or just
using that to kind of get command metrics as well, like getting a better understanding of training command, because you know, training velo isn't like easy per se. Depends where you come in, but it's much more straightforward in training command, obviously. So we're just trying to flesh out as much of a immersive kind
That's
of
interesting.
offering
That's
as
good
possible.
stuff.
yeah,
And-
even just
yeah.
for your end, like it's kind of just another data point. If you were able to know like, hey, when you try to throw arm side fastball, you typically miss by this much.
Yeah.
But when you try to throw glove side fastball, you're missing by this much. So that could maybe help you out too, in terms of like, okay, now I'm not getting frustrated as much when I miss that spot, because I know I don't play well there as much.
Or why am I missing? Why am I missing by?
Or-
why am I missing more this side or that?
Exactly.
Side?
Yeah. And maybe that's where I should be focusing on, right? Like, hey, command is good here. You know, your miss distance there with that pitch is already in like a pretty good spot, and let's focus on this one, kind of a thing. So just trying to find all those.
Goes without saying, podcast guest gets a heavy discount. And if Lindley likes you get an even heavier discount.
Yeah, man. If you're ever in the area, for sure, stop by. At least check out the
for sure.
check out the gym.
Yeah. Again, a little bit harder now that I have
Yeah.
kids and stuff. I can't
yeah.
just
We
go out
can
there.
mocap them too.
Yeah, we'll put them in the lab.
Shoot, my daughter's 3, so Hopefully I'll stick a tennis racket in her soon.
Let's
Get her a
go.
bat for softball. I don't know what sport she's going to pick up yet.
Let's
As soon as
go.
she picks up a sport, when I'm out there, I might get her on those
go.
force plates too, or biomechanic. You never
Definitely.
know, man. I might get crazy with it.
That's
Let's
awesome.
go.
That's awesome. Well, shoot, man. Thanks again for coming on. This is really great.
Yeah, no
This is
problem,
awesome.
man. Great chat with you guys. I mean, anytime
Yeah.
I can, I love talking baseball. So
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
anyway,
Yeah. Maybe
you
we'll
bend
do
my
it.
ear, I'll bend yours. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe we'll do a check-in later. See how things are going. Get you
Yeah.
back on here. That'd be tight.
Yeah. Hopefully the lockout doesn't last that long. But if it lasts
Yeah.
longer, maybe I'll have an excuse to get out there. And,
That's true.
Train for a little bit. Maybe we do something like that.
That's
Yeah.
true.
But
That's true.
thanks for having me on, guys.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fire.
Episode
All right.
70.
Yeah.
Episode 70.
Next time I'll have a beer. I'll have a beer ready next time too.
Let's
Let's
go.
go.
Make
Inexcusable.
up for this one. You gotta have 2 next time.
Let's
No,
go.
no problem.
Yeah.
I'll bring a little 6-pack or 12-pack, whatever you
There
guys
you
want.
go.
We can chat for hours.
Hell yeah. Oh yeah. Thanks again, Nick. Thanks again.
All right, no problem, guys. Thank you.
Word.
Peace.
Later.
Peace, man.